welcome back to Fighters Drinking Coffee. On today's episode, we are joined by John Klem from Managed Memberships, and we are your guests,
Scott Dance
and Michael Sutherland. And with the 40 years of combined grappling experience, we hope to make your jiu-jitsu training easier. So, John, how about you introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on. Like you said, I'm John Klem, Managed Memberships. I run some software there. I am a jiu-jitsu hobbyist. I've been training for a little over 4 years now, as we'll probably get into the details there. I had to take a year off for an injury, but a little over 4 years. I am a blue belt, 2-stripe blue belt. Just real passionate about the jiu-jitsu martial arts community, and looking forward to sharing kind of my insight on, being a beginner and my journey in jiu-jitsu there.
Yeah, man, we're glad to have you on. And, we've spoke before, we talked a little bit before this. And I mean, you started a while ago, right? Doing jiu-jitsu. How many years ago was that?
Yeah, well, actually, yeah, you're right. It's been more than 4 years. It's funny how, time flies, especially, having a son. So yeah, I started 2020. So it's like right at the tail end of COVID. So, we kind of the lockdowns and stuff were kind of easing up after having been, more egregious there. But yeah, so right around the tail end of 2020 there is when I started.
Yeah, and what got you into jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, so right in that COVID time, my wife had ended up telling me, it came out that we were going to have a child. And I remember, my father had passed away before the age of 50 for congestive heart failure. And at the time, I was weighing in around 270 pounds, and it's a very fluffy 270. I was, getting winded walking up the stairs and all that, right? So definitely not a healthy 270. And I just knew that I didn't want to do that to my son, that I needed to be around. I needed to really start focusing on my longevity in that. And so I started on a fitness journey. And originally it was just sort of, doing some cardio, lifting some weights. I'd read Starting Strength and started doing some barbell work and all that. And then just preparing to have our son, we ended up meeting with a financial advisor. And it was kind of funny, out of nowhere, totally unprompted. Somehow we got on the conversation of jiu-jitsu and that he was a jiu-jitsu practitioner. And he even had like a video of him at a competition. He got this like a Sotogari on this guy. And at the time, obviously, I didn't know what an Sotogari was or anything, but I was very impressed because this was like a pretty nerdy dude, pretty white collar, wore glasses and that kind of stuff. And so he was a very relatable guy. And before that, I don't know, I kind of had this impression, martial arts was more of, for lack of a better word, like a blue collar thing, or like, you should be an athlete and that kind of stuff. And this was oddly enough before sort of the Mikey Musumeci archetype, was really popular, like the jiu-jitsu nerd. Before that was like a common trope. And so anyways, he and I got to talking and I'm like, wow, this sounds cool. Let me give that a shot. And thankfully, he was sort of my friendly face that got me, showing up and feeling comfortable, and kind of helped me through those original, like that initial shock to my system. And that, it's awkward being, showing up for your first class, and depending on where you're going, right, they always have different warm-ups and stuff like that. And I just remember like at our gym, they do about 15 minutes of warm-up, which, may or may not be excessive, but we're doing a lot of like the movements that are basic to jiu-jitsu, like, jacques and pendulums and all these other movements that are, for me anyways, were not intuitive at all. And it was nice having a friendly face and, amongst the crowd. It's like, okay, cool. I don't necessarily feel like I'm an idiot making a fool out of myself, right? And slowly but surely, it's like I got bit by the bug. And after that, it became sort of, I got that jujitsu obsession anyways, right? And that like almost everything health related was like in furtherance of my jujitsu journey, right? So, watching what I eat and going on runs, getting my cardio up, even strength training and that kind of stuff in terms of injury prevention. And so that's sort of been the thing that's really kind of kept me going on it, right? Is it's this nice physical outlet for me, even though I wouldn't consider myself like an athletic guy by any stretch of the imagination. It's nice that there's this sort of fun game that I get to play that really helps me focus on, that mind-body connection and sort of, going through the motion.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's interesting, right? When you get to jiu-jitsu for the first time, that like, I don't know. I was an athlete before, so it was a little different. Like I was in grappling sports before jiu-jitsu, but I get to see it a lot. And I know Scott does too, where you see like guys doing jiu-jitsu is like either they're maybe not their first, it might not always be their first athletic endeavor, but maybe their first one in a long time, right? Like they might have done sports as a kid or something, but, or, it's their first time doing a martial art. And yeah, you get to see that like, I don't know if you just rediscover coordination.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure you're a father, right? So you've
Absolutely.
probably also seen this where like kids, I think they're born knowing jujitsu and knowing like how to grapple and move their bodies this way. And so I always tell people that like, kids, we all knew how to do this at one point and we have to relearn it because we just don't do it. Right. So,
it's that whole, I guess, was it kinesthetic or awareness, right, of where your body is. It is interesting because I see it both. Because my son actually, he trains as well. I got him in when he turned 3. My home gym allows kids to train as early as 3 years old, and so he's been doing break falls and working on his samurai walks and stuff like that for almost 3 years now because he's about to turn 6. And I mean it's interesting seeing it because at 3 he had just been walking for not that long, right? And then he's trying to go through these motions, and to your point, he was picking it up much quicker than I was. So it is interesting how that works out.
Yeah, you had like years, you had decades to forget how to move like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, sitting at a desk, and I don't know. It's interesting because like some of it, I always joke that like I'm obviously not mentally disabled and I'm not physically disabled, but somewhere where that connection happens, there's got to be some kind of disability here because it's like I'll notice like during the instructional, sometimes we were doing one, it was just a simple arm drag. And somehow I was like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. Awesome. I see what the instructor's doing. Now I'm going to go with my partner and I'm going to do this correctly. And I just kept screwing it up. And it's like, obviously, arm drag is a very simple, fundamental movement. And, I've gotten better at it now, but it's just like, for whatever reason, the concept really took me several reps before I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is what I got to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty interesting though. Like the concept of like a mind body connection disability. I don't know if you could, I don't know if anyone's going to classify that though. It might be tough to like convince
John. We need our another guy named John who's been on the show. Who's
I think
psychology expert.
Did you meet Big John when you came by the gym? So John, who's Klem, the one on the show currently. Sorry, there's another John. He's also been a guest, so we have to like clarify this. There's lots of Johns.
Too many.
He came by, he was in town. So you came to town, and you, which I give you tons of credit for waking up and driving to our gym, which was not where you were staying at 5:30 in the morning for a 5:30 a.m. class. So lots of credit there because it's not for the weak. And then was Big John there though? Did you get to roll with him?
Absolutely was. Yeah, he absolutely was. Yeah. Now I forget I think, well, they're all sort of big. But I think there was a taller guy that kind of had like a permed style hair. I don't think that was John. John was the older gentleman, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. But like, I just remember, yeah, he was huge. He looked like he probably benched like 400 pounds or something. But,
pretty close. Yeah.
So yeah.
Sounds like it.
I believe he repped 365 on Thursday. I believe that's the official numbers. So you're probably correct.
Nice. Yeah. I say it's that industry insider information there. But yeah, it is funny you mentioned that. Yeah. My wife thought I was an absolute psychopath. And because like anytime we're traveling, I like to go and visit gyms just to kind of see, get different looks. And, it is always I don't know, I've had good luck, I mean, there's some horror stories out there about like bad gyms and stuff like that, but I feel like you guys were like super gracious hosts. I felt safe the entire time I was there. I will admit I got in my feelings there a little bit when I forget his name, but I was listening to your other podcast and he had just competed or had his first competition not too long ago, and I remember he was a white belt. And I'm thinking, okay, but he was like a super athletic dude. And so, and some of the exercises we were doing, I mean, he was smoking me. And then it was only later I found out that he was like, he had some kind of like pro NFL career. Like he was I forget what the terminology is, but like, again, there's this like pro athlete adjacent individual, right? And it seemed like all the people I was working with were like that, right? Like we had Big John, who was a monster. And then I forget that other guy's name. Again, a taller dude, had kind of like the permed
Perry
haircut.
You were with
But,
Perry.
like, he was yeah. He was. I guess he had something as well. Like again, kind of pro athlete adjacent. But
No,
the
Perry
other guys were very sharp. And
Perry also has. This is also Perry's first sport ever. He's just a weird menace of society, where he's a surprising.
Okay, never mind then. Yeah.
But yeah, Rock is the one you're talking about. He was a D1 football player, and then he was an undrafted free agent picked up by the Broncos. So he's a pro level athlete, correct? They're all freaks of nature. That's what they all are.
Yeah.
They're giants that are athletic and strong, and it's just not fair.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I had a lot of fun. It was great. It was great too, seeing like the different looks. Like, various gyms have their sort of go-to game that they're trying to teach, or their curriculum. And like, what you guys were practicing was a little on the, I don't know, I hadn't seen it before. Like we had that one drill where I guess it was like almost sort of double octopus. And then kind of fighting out to take the other person's back, or and I remember that was the game, right, to try to get a dominant position. And like at my gym and sort of some of the stuff that I do, I'm always trying to guard reposition. Like I'm not a dirty guard puller, but if I'm trying to if I'm on the ground, I really like to try to get to close guard. And obviously that was not the win condition, right? So like, I don't know, it was funny, like trying to go against the grain, I guess, in terms of what was like my reflexive move in that scenario.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, we were working on like scramble positions, Scott. So like we were doing all scramble drills. It was pretty fun. It was also like a wild day to show up, and especially if you had to scramble against Big John, because he was a wrestler. So, yeah, that was actually a fun day. It was one of the days I was like, we're going to do something different today, guys. We're going to scramble. So, yeah, we do a lot of stuff like that. And I know I try not to shoehorn everyone into grappling the way that I do. That way that everyone is a little bit different, because most of them probably shouldn't grapple the way I do. I do some bullshit stuff sometimes, but it works for me. So whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So like, your business, like your job, right? It takes you all around, right? You get to go visit a bunch of different places. And I imagine that means you also get to train with some really cool people at some different gyms, cool places. I know you touched on it a little bit, but like, tell us about that. What's some of the, obviously outside of training with me, what are some of the cool spots and like cool people you've gotten to meet because of it?
Well, interestingly enough, when I'm like cross training and that kind of stuff, it's more often than not on family vacations. Like I don't do a whole lot of like on site with some of the MMA or BJJ gyms that use the software. However, I will say, my original home gym is based in my hometown, which is Evansville, Indiana. And kind of through some of the marketing and outreach and stuff like that I was doing for managed memberships, I got like a Google alert that there was a MMA gym starting in Henderson, Kentucky. And I started doing some outreach on them. And it's the head coach over there is Nate Manis. He was a UFC fighter, also BKFC. And we ended up talking and stuff like that. And so I started training there because they were so close. And that sort of became my home away from home. And like I even ended up moving my son's training over to there as well. But I don't know. It's it is interesting, getting those different looks, cross training, that kind of stuff, dealing with, seeing sort of the business side of it as well. Right. And so like one of the things is like with the, with my software, it is just to sort of manage the memberships, obviously, and then kind of communication and all that. But particularly with Mayhem MMA, I've really been kind of working with those guys and helping them on the marketing side and seeing like the ins and outs of like, membership retention and, driving signups and that kind of stuff, mostly out of like a selfish interest, not from the managed membership side, but because I really like that gym, right? And I really want them to succeed. And so like I even do some sponsorship with them and that kind of stuff. And just really sort of kind of being in the trenches with them and helping them through some of their, challenges. And thankfully that's translated a lot to other gyms that may have questions, right? Because it's, I feel like there's always sort of like a summer slump. I guess it depends on your market, but like I definitely see it. It's a very common thing where like for whatever reason people are going on vacation and that kind of stuff. And are they going to cancel their membership or their cards go bad or you just have, miscellaneous churn. And so kind of helping people through that. But yeah, it's just been interesting seeing how, the different gyms are ran and kind of, the programs that they're training and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I know you've probably seen summer slumps, Scott.
Yeah, I think people will go on vacation, like you said, and people just want to go outside and do other things. You get like the disciplined, hardcore students who, any academy has that. It's probably like an 80-20 thing. Like 20% of the membership is just going to go to all the classes, which is great. And that keeps the show going. But whatever the other portion is just wants to go outside and do summer stuff. So like you said, it's pretty normal. And generally you get like a little back to school thing for parents and younger kids when they're done with the summer travel and all that. And like it sounds, I don't have kids, you guys both have kids, but it seems also like that's when people are going to camps and stuff, and there's like a million activities that parents are throwing their kids into that gets them running around doing different things. And so maybe they put, depending on the academy, or if the academy has a summer camp, that will be different. But if the kid's going off to baseball camp or whatever, or swimming or something, they might put jiu-jitsu or whatever the kids program is on hold until they get back to the regular routine. And then interestingly enough, I feel like kind of like weirdly enough, adults kind of come back around back to school time too. Maybe after summer's over and they're done drinking, going to happy hours and going on vacation, siestaing all the time. Like they want to get back to the rhythm as the winter comes around. But the seasonality things, it's a real thing. Yeah, I know this marketplace. I don't know other marketplaces, but I feel like that's probably a consistent trend wherever you go.
Yeah, we just hit, I think like just this past week, we hit the slump. I think maybe the last week or two, where like normally we'll have like a bunch of people in the mornings, and like they just now are starting to hit that, like, I think it's like the last minute vacations, because most of the guys that train with me in the morning are
Parents.
So I think they're like in that like, oh no, we have like 2 weeks left before school. We need to hit those vacations now.
Yeah. Well, it's like it's August 1st today, you know, like I don't have kids, but you guys correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like end of August, early September, that's when back to school does kick in. So
yeah, it's like it depends on the county, but like it's like mid-August, early September.
So if people are going to go out and like
county
enjoy one last trip to the beach or whatever, like that, now's the time to do it.
Yeah, I guess also you have that like little bit of a break before after the holidays, before the next holiday, right? Like this end of July so like especially around here, like you're going to the beach. The beaches are insane on holiday weekends.
Mhm.
So this is kind of your time like, all right, there's no holiday. We can like sneak away.
Right.
Like it's a little bit cheaper and not as busy.
It's like an art and a science to actually picking the vacation is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess, I don't know. John, what do you think the better academies do to manage those downswings?
Well, I think the idea is that, I don't know, it's this common sales trope of like pipeline solves all problems, right? And I feel like almost any business, the problem is they don't have systems in place. And so they see the number go up and they're like, oh, okay, cool. And then maybe because of, staffing issues or, obviously poor software or for whatever reason, number goes up, they're happy, they're not thinking about it. Number goes down. And then they're like, oh my, what's happening here? We should have been doing some stuff, to keep that number up. And I just think that's it. That's part of the problem is that like there's a certain degree of seasonality that you're never going to get away with or away from. You just see it all the time. And that's like across industry because there's a lot of gun ranges and stuff that use managed membership as well. And they'll have various classes on like either self-defense or like, I don't know, just miscellaneous like gun related stuff. It's not even like martial arts in the typical sense, but just across the board, right? To your point, people are busy or they're doing other things or they're outside. So maybe they're not booking these classes. But I think a big problem of that is if you don't have a system in place that like you're constantly, have your marketing machine running and adding people into the funnel, you're going to have those kind of slumps that you're going to see or the hockey sticks or whatever, right? And it's always like, oh no, we're freaking out. Now we're going to try to do a bunch of ads and, sending out mailers and all these other things. And then you get a huge drive and you see a peak and then they're too busy to sort of deal with the onboarding people and then it goes back down again, right? So I just think that lack of consistent focus on pipeline, for lack of a better word, is a big part of it. But some of it, you're just never, you're gonna see.
Yeah, this is the way it is, right? So we're the business cycle of this world. Do you feel like some of those guys have like staffing issues, like they have to, they're undermanned to handle because you had talked about a couple things, like you said, like sometimes folks will respond to the trend, maybe they're kind of behind the eight ball instead of like leaning into it and being ahead of it. They're responding to the downswing and then they pump some money into marketing. They do the flyers, they do the whatever, and then it works and they get a big uptick. But like you said, they can't handle that influx of business. It makes me think of staffing, perhaps like they're just trying to manage too many balls up in the air, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And it can depend. Yeah. I think staffing could potentially be one of them. Some of it is, again, I'm biased here, but software, right? Or depending on how you're automating things or how you're looking at it. If you're not, regardless of what software you're using or systems, I think making the onboarding of members more streamlined, right? Like if you're using old paper waivers and that kind of stuff or managing that, or if it's like, I've seen some gyms where they'll do like an ACH form and then they store that in an office somewhere and like they have to get a template from their bank and manually run stuff. And it's like this huge waste of time. I think that's a big part of it. I think too, just like insight though, like if you're not, because the problem is, right. And I've talked about this on other appearances and stuff. It's like to be a successful gym owner, I feel like you have to be passionate about your martial art, right? And you have to get to that point where you're capable of teaching people. I think it requires you to stick a lot of your skill points, like a video game, into your craft. And doing that allows you to be successful because you are this individual who has built up this, acumen of, hey, I know how to do martial arts. But I think the potential downside of that is a lot of these gym owners have not spent a whole lot of time building up their business acumen. And some of them too, like they almost feel dirty in terms of like trying to do the sales and the marketing. And I don't know, like with Mayhem, I'm talking with them and they've got this promotion and they're doing this thing, and they absolutely hate the idea of like calling people and following up, right? For whatever reason, they think it feels like cold calling, or they have these various like hangups about trying to do like automatic text cadences to keep people engaged. And I think some of it is like, I always fall back to Penn Jillette, who, is a very famous atheist. And someone had asked him, somehow they got on the topic of religion, and they had asked him about evangelicals. And like his statement was, if this person believes that I'm going to go to hell if I don't, repent and accept Jesus, how much do they have to hate me to not try to convince me or tell me at least about that, right? And so, and this guy is a guy who doesn't agree with that, and I just fall back to that. It's like, you have, as a business owner, as a gym owner, you have a duty almost, right, to your family, especially like if this is your sole way of paying your bills, right? You have a duty to your family and yourself to try to drum up business, to keep the business afloat. But more importantly, like this gym community that you've built, if you're not properly marketing and doing the sales, like you're trying to, A, keep the business afloat, but then B, it's like just my own experience, right? Like that random encounter I had with this financial advisor has changed the trajectory in my life. And it's like, yeah, I'm not like a professional jiu-jitsu guy or anything like that, but if I had never discovered Brazilian jiu-jitsu in that gym that I attend, like my life would be less colorful, right? Or less, I don't know. Like I definitely feel like he did me a great service by just pitching this, right? And so I feel like a lot of gym owners need to think of themselves more as like evangelists to their craft, right? And to get themselves in that sort of sales and marketing mindset, because it is, not to sound culty about it, but it's like, this is something that, more and more people need to be aware of and recognize that this is a welcoming environment and, a safe place to train and all that.
Right. So it's like what you're saying, there might be some cultural blockage for some, we'll call them, I mean, they're business owners, but they think of themselves perhaps like martial artists primarily, and then the business is kind of there. But like what you're saying is, or what I'm hearing is, if maybe they seem to remember the mission and what they're doing is a good thing, so selling it's not a bad thing at all. It's like, I mean, like you said, there's a practical, like you obviously have to, I mean, if you're not going to do that, it's not going to work. You won't be coaching in 6 months if you don't continue to enroll people. So there's the obvious necessity of it. But it's a good thing. It's like you believe in what you're doing and know that you're doing a good thing. If that same individual's trusting and proud of their craft as they should be, like you said, because ultimately that is probably like the foundation of the home, is their ability to deliver a good service. But then you got to be able to tell people about it. You have to evangelize, as you said, to ensure that the business continues.
Well, and I think there might be like in jiu-jitsu, this probably does cross over into other martial arts too, where like being humble is so like, I don't know, we're told to be humble. And so like people are nervous about or skeptical of themselves, not of other people, but like skeptical of like selling themselves. And I don't know, I just feel like they're creating their own barrier. We're like, no, I have to be humble. I can't talk about myself and like try to tell people that I'm good at this. And like, they like create that own like mental block to where they don't feel like they can't sell themselves. But like, especially in today's day and age, you kind of have to. But I guess you could also say that like, if you're uncomfortable like pumping yourself up and selling yourself, that even just pushing the sport, like pushing jujitsu out to people and like selling jujitsu, maybe that's a way to break that mental barrier down. right? I don't know, just a thought, but
Well, I think I read something and it was like there was some analogy, like they actually did whatever brain imaging scans, right? And it was like the concept of rejection, it lit off something that was very similar to like pain receptors, right? And the idea is that I just think it's a human trope in general that this whole fear of rejection, it all kind of circles back to the same thing. And my original jiu-jitsu journey, right? It's like getting people to show up. I think it's all related. Getting people to show up is like there's nervousness of like, hey, I'm going to look stupid. Same thing that the coach or the people trying to generate traffic or generate business, they don't necessarily want to interrupt individuals, right? And like, hey, I don't want to send a text message asking somebody about this, or I don't want to pick up the phone and call some of these people and kind of see what's up and get a feel for, A, what their experience was, if there's anything I can improve, or B, try to communicate with them and say like, hey, are you interested in, joining the gym here? We got these packages. And it's just interesting when you think about it, because I just feel like there's some blockages on both sides. And the thing is, it's like once you hit a certain momentum, you can probably get away with the more passive attempts, right? Which is like, your Facebook and Meta ads and, various other, you can hire a third party marketing agency maybe and do all that stuff once you reach a certain part. But unfortunately for a lot of these, MMA gyms and BJJ gyms and that kind of stuff, it's very difficult to get to that spot unless you're going to go with these more interrupting patterns. And I don't know. I think there's some weird sort of symmetry there, right? Where it's the same psychology behind these gym owners not feeling comfortable getting deep into the sales and promotional aspect is the exact same psychology that is preventing a lot of people who would otherwise be, very enriched by participating in a martial art from, showing up and trying a few classes.
Do you generally, John, just out of curiosity, do you notice that pattern of some of the, we'll call it like the blockages or like the cultural resistance to some business operations or sales, call it what you want? Is it usually newer academy owners that are having this like existential crisis, or is it all across the board, do you think?
Well, I guess I would say it really depends. It's pretty wide spectrum. Yeah. I honestly, the newer academy owners are probably going to be the most susceptible to it. But especially like in my area, you'll see a lot of gym owners who, maybe they're just barely, covering their lease for their commercial property and that kind of stuff. But like, they don't necessarily want to change anything because they've just been doing it that way for so long and they've gotten comfortable with that, and there's something to be said about for some of these individuals, either A, it's a part-time endeavor, or B, it's sort of, for lack of a better word, like a lifestyle business, right? Where they don't necessarily care too much about growing it. They're just like, well, we're just going to, collect, we got this number of members and this is that. But, I think that in and of itself is fairly dangerous because, if you're not trying to fill the pipeline or kind of expand things, you have that existential risk.
Yeah. I mean, going into business with a casual attitude is gonna be tough. If depending on the circumstances, like maybe you have a friend who's gonna give you like a space for so cheap, or your rent's so low that it's like you said, it's like you're like, yeah, we kind of got ourselves set up pretty good here. I'm making a couple $1,000 a month. I'm barely paying any money, and like I'm all good, right? Those are rare, right? In my opinion, yeah, like it's, the business is tough, and you kind of have to go all in. You're not rewarded for the indecision of how to apply yourself.
Real quick, guys, if you're enjoying the show, pop over to our website, www.fdcpodcast.com. We've got weekly blog posts that expand on all the show topics. There's a newsletter as well. You can sign up for all of that for free. And if you're really enjoying the show, show us some support. Click that coffee button or the donate tab. Like, subscribe, review. Now back to the show.
How to apply yourself in it. I've seen it. Like I've seen some folks make that mistake of being a little too loose, and like you, I have also seen poorer performance generally from that demo.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
and-
it's interesting. I just feel like, there's a lot of there are a lot of I don't know, it rhymes between like the skills necessary to be good at martial arts and the skills necessary to be good at business. Like I find myself constantly thinking about, the parallels between the two. And like a lot of it is like being comfortable in an uncomfortable position, right?
Mhm.
Like just focusing on what is the next thing that I need to do.
Mhm.
And so like even me, I'm seeing it like I'm not necessarily running a gym. I am helping some gym owners run their gyms, but like in growing managed memberships, like I will, I am, on the spectrum a little bit, right? Obviously as a software guy and kind of nerdy and socially awkward, but, I'm sitting here and, forcing myself or bullying myself to, cold call, various places, try to see what they're, even if I can't convince them to sell, I'm at least getting market research and like, okay, what are they using? What's working? What's happening here? And even like, obviously, here podcast appearances and that kind of stuff, right? Like getting out of my shell and just focusing on, listen, these whatever negative emotions may be associated, right, with the fear of unknown or the fear of rejection or whatever, realizing that those are counterproductive inputs and just, focusing again on what is the next move that I should be doing or what's the next action I should be taking that's going to move the ball forward.
No, it's a really good analogy to your point, and I think like, just in my opinion, having been in and stay and currently in the martial arts business owner position, I think that's a really apt way to describe it. Like I said a minute ago, I think you have no choice but to go all in, and like you said, just day in, day out, you have to embrace the challenge of accepting the responsibilities that you've chosen, which are all of the business duties. It's not just selling, but my background is sales. You're talking to a guy who used to have to I cold called for years. It's not my preferred way to sell things, but back in the day, I used to do it and I kind of tricked myself because it's a bit of I say this with love to people cold calling. It's kind of a miserable task. But it can be fun too. If you get to a point, like I just decided to, many years ago, I was like, this is my job. I have to cold call. I'm just gonna like try to get good at it. I mean, like if you, and to your point, like if you just accept, like you're just most likely going to get rejected most of the time. Any outcome better than a complete and utter rejection or just completely being ignored, left on red or whatever, just hung up on is automatically it's better than that. Like, if I remember just like convincing myself, I'm like, let's see if I can keep someone on the phone for a little bit and like ask them some questions. I like really got into like different ways to like on how to introduce myself, like what questions I would ask people just to like provoke a conversation. I had fun with it is what I'm saying. Like it kind of got to a point where I was just like, well, let's just like see what we can get out of this. And then there is the rush of taking someone who wasn't like a hard no, get the fuck off the phone, Scott. Like that's pretty clear, right? Like, but like someone's like, I don't know if I'm interested, and you're like, all right, cool. Like, well, if I ask, like, what are some of the? Is it a money thing? Is it this? Like, if the conversation kept going, like you would get to where like people talk long enough, they'll tell you why they're saying no, and if you can handle it pretty well, you still may get a no, and you're like, hey, no problem. I had like little tactics for like when would be a good time for me to check back in with you. I would not accept no in its entirety unless it was just the absolute answer. But like just tastefully, because like you still have to be like a human being. I don't want to be like a psychopath who just is like, I'm not gonna get up and get off the phone until you say yes, like one of those. But like find a way to just like in a human but like tenacious way, like keep asking until you can get something out of the conversation. And if the answer is no, it's just no. But there was like an art to it, and like I remember kind of getting decent at it. And I rather enjoyed. Actually, I'll tell you the stories that stuck with me the most from like being in sales were not like the really easy wins where you made a bunch of money, even though those are great. They don't really like when it feels easy. I mean, that's the ultimate. Like, look, as a business guy, like you want easy, you want like scalable. You said it earlier. You want like systems and things that produce like sales. That's indicative of like a good product and a good system and a good business for it to be like a seamless process. But there's like a battlefield too of grappling with, with the message and figuring out what resonates. And like I said, what I'm trying to get across is like, I would like print out email threads that I'd have with people who like, where I like tangoed them into like a yes eventually. And then like later on a sale, even just like tango with them just to have the sales conversation. I used to just book sales calls before I even got into sales, way back in the day. But like those always stuck with me because I was kind of like proud of myself. I was like, all right, cool. Like I didn't give up. Found a way to just keep the person, like just ask more questions, like decent questions, just to continue talking to figure out like what's the real challenge here, because that was forever ago in like a B2B environment where like I would ask myself, and this is like to what you were saying a minute ago earlier, where it's like at its core, and, you know, cold calling, and you know, we're not like cold calling random phone numbers from like the white pages in, you know, just the raw list of human beings in martial arts, right? Like usually you might be cold calling someone who like, it's not even a cold call in my opinion. Like they went to your website, so you have their information. Like that's not a cold call.
They filled out a form.
By the way,
no, I agree.
That is not a cold call. Just as a guy who used to cold call, that's a warmer call. I mean, it doesn't mean it's an immediate sale, but like you're talking to someone who has indicated interest in this. So back to what you were saying earlier, it's like if you believe in what you're doing, you're like, hey, like you expressed interest. Like we have this thing that you expressed some degree of interest in, unless it was a mistake, unless you accidentally submitted like 5 forms of your information, which is a joke. Like you didn't accidentally do that, unless maybe someone sabotaged you. Like maybe I took Mike's. Yeah, like I might take Mike's name and submit it on like 50, you know, different websites to see if he can get spammed. But like putting that aside, I used to call people who like I just knew they had a business that my business served. Right, that's a cold call. But I even in that circumstance, I would like say to myself, like, hey, look, like they're the customer archetype that my company's designed to serve. So there's some degree of alignment. They may have a solution already. They may not have the money to buy it. This may not be the right time of the year because they budget for these things in December and it's July or whatever. So like that was the type of stuff I was trying to get to, is I just find if like, are you really not interested at all in like improving your process for X, Y, and Z or whatever? Like surely, like that's the fun thing about sales is I'm like there's no way what I'm going to say is something they're not actually completely interested in. If I'm saying something that's going to make their life better, it's more likely that there's an issue or something that's stopping them from doing it right now. And so if I can at least find out what that is, that was why like most of the time my tactic was like, hey, look, I get it. Now's not the right time. In 3 months, when you guys are in buying or evaluation season for this type of product, can I call you back? And they're like, yeah, sure. And then like I'd try to in my opinion, I would try to get a little like respect from that. Like I'm listening to what you're saying, individual who's telling me to go away right now. But like if I remember telling them like, oh hey, like I'm gonna call you back in October. I'm gonna put a reminder on my calendar. So like, talk to you then. Anyways,
can I bid for your business?
Yeah. No, but like you'd ask people that, and like I think people would like some people again, like the people who tell you to get the fuck off the phone. You're like, no problem. I don't want to talk to you anyways. Like that's mean. I respect. Hang up. But the people who like you listen to them when they have something to say rather than just be like a robot that's like, no, I can't get off the phone until like you either hang up or I've run out of things to say. Like when you like ask and you listen, like I would get at least more conversations out of that. And I thought there was like a degree of like, hey, look, dude, like, yes, I'm obviously a salesperson. And if this is going to be wasting my time, just tell me. But like, hey, if there's something here in 3 months, dude, I'm going to need sales in 3 months. You know, I'm going to put a reminder on my calendar. I'm going to call you back and let's hopefully have a good conversation then. Anyways. Yeah. So my bit of I tricked myself into like liking cold calling. Maybe I like it again now. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's like cold calling is just one of the methods, and like, you know, a couple really good threads of, you know, that you brought to light there. But you know, as a sort of a founder, bootstrapping, growing the business, right? Like I have to do sales, marketing, all this other stuff, and very much just like gym owners, right? And so before you have the capital or what, unless like you start with, you know, a rich uncle giving you a bunch of money or somehow you've got investors, like a lot of times you're going to be a gym owner. Maybe it's you and a buddy. You guys are going to have to do a lot of the stuff yourselves and sort of figure it out, right? And I would argue, you know, software like managed memberships really helps ease a lot of that. But the point being, it's like, to your point, a lot of it is a timing issue, right? And like, for instance, I do a lot of cold email as well. And again, cold email is probably not a good fit for gym owners, but this coincides with timing, like I'll find lists of people who are using push press, right? And I'll send out emails like, hey, you know, are you still on push press? Da, 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 da. And I'll mention some pain points of things I've heard from other people who are using push press. And, you know, some of the people are like, hey, we love push press, you know, screw off. We're not going to move. And it's like, okay, cool. Yeah. Awesome. I'll have other people who, man, I absolutely hate push press. You know, this is great. Let's book a call. Right. And that's who you're looking for. Right. And to your point, a lot of these aren't, I don't necessarily recommend cold calling to gym owners, but yeah, some goes up as a drop-in. Somebody fills out a form on your website. I think it's a good idea to set up some kind of cadence where like you're going to call them, text them, somehow do those touch points. And to that end, it's like these gym owners may think, man, that's, you know, I don't want to necessarily bug this person, but you never know what's happening on the other end of that phone, right? Like you could have somebody who their girlfriend was cheating on them and they had this messy breakup and, you know, they're down and out and like super depressed. And like all of a sudden you call them and like, hey man, you know, we got this promotion, you know, unlimited, you know, whatever, unlimited sessions this month for X dollars, and you may have just changed your trajectory of your life, right? Like that could have been the moment where they're doing it for the plot now, right? Where all of a sudden you don't know, they're going to be some UFC professional or something.
Yeah, play the Rocky music. Yeah, bro, I'm with you. Right? No, I mean, in my opinion, like what you're describing is kind of, it's a no-brainer. Like it's like a gym operator, like, yeah, you choosing to not do what you're describing in terms of like a follow-up for someone who goes to your website, submits a form or whatever, to not have the text messages or the phone calls or even at the bare minimum, the email cadence is just like, you're just choosing not to do your job. Like, and then maybe I'm being harsh, but like you have to do that. Like that's 101 stuff. So I fully support you on that. It's you won't continue to operate if you're not doing things like that.
Absolutely.
It's a mandate. It's part of the job. Like you signed up for it. But you know, that goes back to what I was saying earlier, where it's like, if you have like some kind of like, maybe it's like you said, the rich uncle or your best buddy has a CrossFit gym with like, you know, 850 or 1,000 extra square feet that he just gives you. Like, that's different, right? Like, I get that there will be circumstances where, like, maybe the urgency of business is just not there for whatever reason because you got a sick setup. But for everyone else who, like you said, has like dumped all their money into something and they're like, fuck, dude, like, I can't afford to ignore these leads. Like, it has to be like what you said.
You got bills to pay.
Yeah, you got fucking bills to pay.
You need to make sure that you protect that by having like that, like you
need
said,
revenue.
John, the pipeline of people coming in, so you aren't reliant on like the 30 guys that are currently signed up. Because if half those guys
some of them
disappear,
are going to move, or like maybe they go to the next gym. Like martial arts is not easy, man.
Yeah.
It's
or they get injured, right?
Or they get injured.
Someone. Yeah, and they're not, you know, they're going to cancel their membership because they got a spiral fracture of their, you know, rotator cuff or something, right? But yeah,
you'd mentioned you do some work with guys around churn too. I don't know if you have like any like best practices or like little tidbits of wisdom for people listening to who are in the business space, or even just me.
I mean, it depends. I think in our other conversations, you mentioned you were on push press, so I don't know that they support this, right? But managed membership supports it at a fraction of the cost. But not to try to turn this into
no, of course you would never. No, don't worry about it. Yeah,
absolutely not. No, but
he requested it.
I just think, like, if you have a system, and I know Push Press does actually do this, where like the check-ins, right? I think just keeping an eye on, this is one thing I see a lot of gyms struggle with, even ones that are using managed memberships though. And it's like, I think that a big part of it is if you're not enforcing like check-ins or somehow tracking who's showing attendance up to classes. Yeah. And so there's a myriad of ways that you can do it, even with managed memberships. Like, manage memberships. I'm obviously the most versed in how they do it, but I see Push Press as a check-in functionality as well. I think making sure that someone comes in, they show up for a class, making sure that they check in and verifying that they've signed their waivers and all that they've paid, but also making sure that when they check in that you're tracking that information. So it's like, hey, this person hasn't checked in a couple weeks. What's happening? And even if like you touch with them and it's like, hey, yeah, listen, I have an injury, or I've had a death in the family, or da-da-da-da-da. Those are a lot of opportunities where you can avoid that risk of churn. And maybe it's like, oh, hey man, listen, we understand things have happened, or sometimes things happen. We will pause your membership for 2 months or something like that, right? And it's like, yeah, that's a lost revenue, but like I'm reminded of what was it, pets.com? It was the place where you can, or was it Chewy? There was a service where you'll get automatic dog food, right? And they had a very specific policy in place where if you had canceled and you had mentioned that your dog had died or something like that, that they would send you flowers.
Oh, that's nice.
They're like, hey, you don't have to worry about, we're going to refund you. Don't worry about sending it in. Feel free to donate it. And they would send you flowers. And the thing is, like, you do stuff like that, and like, yeah, that costs them money, but
they're going to have customers for life, dude. Yeah, you're right.
It's like you've bought a customer for life.
You're right.
You think about it, like, how much do you spend on advertising? Like, what's your cost of acquisition? What's all this other stuff? Like, giving a free month or reaching out or do what? Like, it's so much better than paying to get a new customer, right? Is if you just give some concessions that, like, hey man, listen, we know things happen. We're going to work with you, blah blah blah. But you can't know that if you're not checking in, right? Like, that's a big thing. And I see it across the board. And unfortunately, like, managed memberships makes it super easy. There's all sorts of methods people can use. There's like a QR code that you can scan and have like a little thing there. People can type in their number and all that other stuff. But a lot of time and energy has been invested in making that as easy as possible.
Right.
I still see a significant portion of gym owners, for whatever reason, like, they don't want to have that discipline of forcing in those check-ins. And I think that's really the only way that you're going to have a good idea of, like, okay, cool, this person's at risk of churn, or, this is what's happening.
So there's some fundamentals around, like you said, tracking customer behavior. Like, if so-and-so was going to 4 classes a week for 3 months, and then, like you said, if you're using your gym management software to be able to identify when that dude who was a super user for a couple months starts to trail off, and then 3 or 4 months go by. I mean, hopefully faster than that, like you identified at least. But as you said, you start to see that they get jumped. I don't know what the terminology is. I want to say, like, one of the systems I've used in the past called them lost sheep. I guess. I don't know. Like, maybe the sheep are like just wandering around outside of the flock or whatever. And that's why they picked that phrase. But the lost sheep get put on a list, and that's, like you said, can be something. It's either automated through the tool, or you can shoot them a note and say, "Hey, we miss you. Like, come in and well, I don't know." That's where the business owner has to use a little bit of creativity. Like, come up with the call to action to re-engage with that person before, like you said, they leave.
Well, and I think that's also good too, considering that, like, almost every jiu-jitsu business talks about, like, community and family, and, like, they like to liken that, which, whatever, some might say that's like cult-like behavior, but whatever. The community part is a huge aspect of the jiu-jitsu gym. And, like, if you're just going to let people not show up and use their membership, it really shows that you don't necessarily care, right? Yeah. Like, it's contradictory to this thing that you're selling people. So even if it's, hey, they're paying, cool, whatever. But, you really should, like you're saying, check in on these people, because maybe they don't know that they're paying you. Maybe they've forgotten. It's just
that's probably what a lot of business owners are scared of doing. They're like, oh, if I message this guy, he might just cancel rather than just let it run.
But maybe you get this guy back.
That's right.
Rather than, like, at the end of the year, they're, evaluating their budget, and they're like, what, I've been paying for this thing and I don't, I'm not using this at all.
Your business model shouldn't be built around, like, people forgetting that they're paying you. I agree with you.
You should be willing to provide that service.
And that's the sad part too. It's like the Planet Fitness business model, they call it, right? And it's like so many gym owners, and that's a big part too. Whenever we're doing, because like we offer like free migration assistance and all that, and the migration is a big part of that. And you get into the weeds on the technical aspect of it, and there's a lot of effort that goes into making it so that you can do that migration without people re-entering their credit card, mostly because of that same fear of, like,
if I lose it,
they're making this payment.
Yep.
Yeah, which we offer that, that's a service that we do. But more importantly too, like outside of the tech aspect of it, it's like, yeah, you don't want those sort of zombie members, right? Because to the point that you guys were already making about the community, right? And that's always something that I try to push as well. And I think even outside of the technological factor of it, like when I look and when I first started, like, I had that guy that helped me and got me in, but also I ended up becoming the pet white belt of a blue belt.
Mhm.
And that guy really helped as well. Like he was like we had the instruction obviously, and that was helpful, but he was super helpful too in that like we would maybe go into some deeper nuances. And granted, as a blue belt myself now, you probably shouldn't be taking a whole lot of instruction from a blue belt, but it was nice coming at, like, because I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, right? And he at least had a little bit more of an idea.
Mhm.
And then too, though, you had that camaraderie, and it was just like, I've got buddies now who is like, I'm expecting to see them at various classes. And if they're not there, I'll text them. And I'll be
Yeah,
like, hey,
shame
man,
them, bro.
like I'm doing that. And I'm not even the owner, but it's like, I'm curious, like, hey, bro, we didn't get to work together. What's up? And I
Miss
think
you,
if you
buddy.
can foster that community, even. Exactly. There's this guy, I love him to death, Sway is his name. And it's like he started around the same time as I did. And it's just so funny because like his presence, if it's not there, it's like there's this hole in my head, and so like, and it's unfortunate that, his work had changed. And so he can't show up to some of the noon classes. And like, it's a huge bummer for me.
Yeah.
But like, I think that there's that, if you foster that community, and I think a part of it is, maybe having upper belts, making sure that those are pairing with the lower belts and that kind of stuff, and to foster because you don't want to have white belts working with white belts half the time, right? Especially like if you're doing something crazy like heel hooks or whatever.
Yeah.
But just from a liability perspective, but I think having that good community and fostering those sort of communications, even outside of the tech sector, really helps sort of provide that self-correcting
100%.
system.
We're really in the business. Like the business behind the business is the community business. It's you like people pay you for martial arts, but they they're really sticking around and showing up because of the other people they train with who they become really close with. And like you said, it could be camaraderie of like you and your homie who signed up within a week. I remember me and Mike have talked about this on the show. Like I have my buddy Kelly who I've referenced. It's been a while since I've seen it's been years since I've seen this guy, but he and I started within like the same like 2 weeks. And we were like white belt bros together, then blue belt bros together. And I was like, dude, this is my homie. Like we beat the shit out of each other on the way up, and we were probably terrible. But like at the time you're like, dude, this is awesome. Like it's like I would do the same thing. I'm like, dude, like you're going to class, right? Like we're like road dogs now. Like we're on this, we got to get blue belts together. We got to get purple belts together. Like it's fun. And that's like, I mean, to your point, like, that's one of those things that it's tough to put your finger on one little detail that like one like business operation that drives and nurtures the community aspect. It's like a bit of a choice you have to make as a team leader, business owner, to like go out of your way to find ways, if you can, you can, in my opinion, but like there's like habits or behaviors or like a cadence of like things you should do to nurture that, because that's what's, in my opinion, that's one of the, at least just making the choice as the business owner to think about it. You're not going to be able to always put your finger on the exact, that's the tough thing about business is like things change too. So like, all the time, like the landscape constantly evolves. And if you make the choice to like study when the sales tactics have to change, when the community nurturing tactics have to change, but if you choose to at least keep your eye on these things, like you'll adapt with it. But it's recognized, but also under-recognized as a major lever of what I think that the best in breed academies do that end up being great communities, but also very successful businesses.
Yeah, and I feel like that is an area where honestly these smaller operators have an advantage, and for whatever reason, they're not using that. And like the better example or the easier example I could say is like in weightlifting gyms, right? And it's like nobody ever really talks about the Planet Fitness community, right? Or like you go to a Planet Fitness and you don't really feel like, oh yeah, I belong, even though maybe their advertisement tries to claim that you do feel that, right? You don't feel that. But if you go to a smaller community gym, like, again, weightlifting gyms is another vertical we serve. There's this, the Pit Barbell Club here in Evansville, right? It's a smaller mom and pop establishment, they have such a deep knit community. Like they'll have people that just show up, just like hang out and like talk shop about stuff. And maybe it's a rest day for them, but they really want to go to the gym and meet their buddies and that kind of stuff, right? And you don't get that at Planet Fitness. You get that at the smaller mom and pops, because inherently being a smaller operator, like, yeah, you want to have systems in place, but there's something about like that, you know, like homemade cookies versus ones you buy at Walmart, right? Like you can taste the difference. And I think that's it. That sort of that je ne sais quoi, right? That weird aspect that you can't quite put a finger on, that I feel like a lot of these smaller operations need to lean into and recognize that, like, yeah, listen, you may not have the same budget or, you know, marketing prowess as some of these larger corporations, but like that is the fact that you are a smaller mom and pop operation is inherently a competitive advantage in a lot of these community driven aspects.
Well, and to your point, like, I mean, I would argue as well that cultivating a community where, like you said, where one of the dudes who's in on his rest day, but he's there to like back up one of his bros just to spot because he's going to hit a PR and he's going to be there to be like, good job, swole mate, or whatever. Like, you know, like when you do, like, that doesn't cost any money. It doesn't cost any money. It's just choosing to allow that environment where, like, or build that environment where people want to just be there for that type of shit. That doesn't cost any money. I mean, I guess you have to do that. You have to like have that environment as the head lifting guy or whatever, the owner of the business, to say, yeah, like, come on through. Like, you know, we're happy to have you. Don't, you know, back up Mike. Mike's about to squat 450, and like that's a big deal to Mike, and just show up and cheer. And like, yeah, I've watched videos of like, you know, like I'm sure you guys have both seen those videos of like huge dudes hitting PRs where there's like 30 guys around him screaming at the top of the lungs, like, oh yeah, it's fucking awesome. I love those videos. Where like there's like a cheering squad of dudes for the one guy who's about to break a record for himself, and they're like, oh yeah, and they scream and cheer. It's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's infectious. Like you get that, and it's like, I don't know, it's hard to not feel inspired by that, right?
It's
like
the best.
Yeah, to your point, it's like you're there's all these videos. Well, there was one, it was like, obviously these are like internet celebrities. I remember, what was his name? Half Thor. Like he did some kind of squat PR, and he had, you know, but he had all his bros in the background. And again, that's, you know, these are kind of internet celebrities, but like still, it's that energy, man. It's like, it's palpable. Even watching a video of it, it's just like, oh, it gets your testosterone flowing, right? Like you just let me go bang out some reps here. I want to hit a PR as well, right? Like, and I feel like that's, you know, that's it. It's like this self-feeding cycle. You know, it's sort of a magnet, right?
Yeah, that's like culture stuff.
Yeah, and like when you build a culture like that too, your members, right? Like your members start selling memberships.
That's
too,
right.
Right. Like, so it becomes almost like the community becomes like the main marketing tool. So if you can just get to a point where people enjoy being there, they like enjoy hanging out with each other, then they start bringing other people in. Those people see that, they want to be a part of that. And like, it just compounds, right? So you start like, you have the guy that like shows up to class, even though he can't train. And then, you know, like he's hanging out, like, that kind of thing, the people that just want to be there is almost better than people who just want to use the service.
That's right.
So
it's a good sign.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Before we let you go, I told you have to bring a combat confession. You're going to be, so Jonathan Klem, what is your combat confession for today?
Yeah, so, you know, I think we originally talked about this too in our first conversation. I kind of touched on it, but my first competition, it was an IBJJF one, and sort of my experience with that. You know, if people start Googling enough, they may be able to find it, the video, because it is on the internet. But anyways, point being is, like, you know, I was still a white belt. I was still a white belt at the time, and I'm a bit of an idiot, I guess. I don't know, but again, I live in Evansville, and I was like, man, I really want to do a competition. And for some reason, I landed on an IBJJF competition in Sanford, Florida. And so it's like a 14-hour drive, and nobody else from my gym was going to go. So like already that was like, I don't know why I did that, but I did. And, being a family man, I sort of baked it into like a family vacation, right? Like we were going to go do this competition and then hit up Disney World afterwards. And so it was great. I ended up cutting weight. I was training. I think I had like, 3 months leeway. I was doing a lot of cardio, getting my gas tank up. I was, focusing on, drilling and doing various techniques. Again, cut weight, did all this stuff. And I remember too, like, just with my wife in the hotel room, like the night before, I was making sure I was going through some drills as well. And like, this is what, whatever, like trying to keep sharp. And I had this like whole game plan of like how I was going to do my takedowns and that kind of stuff, or what I was going to go into. And I just remember, the whole thing for my first competition, I was a bundle of nerves, and it wasn't even the whole, like I felt pretty good about the actual experience. Like once I got on the mat, I felt like I was going to be pretty safe, just because whatever. But just the whole pomp and circumstance of it all, and like showing up, and like there was all this anxiety of like, what if the guy says my belt's too short, and like how they measure your gi, right? Like, oh my god, what's gonna happen if I, for whatever reason, I packed an extra gi as well, but like what if they don't like the sleeve length on this or whatever, right? And so I'm all nervous and out of my headspace just thinking about all that silly stuff. And so then finally I get through that. I'm in the bullpen. I'm just waiting. And timing the warm up too was a big challenge. But I remember I was like, okay, cool. We drove, I paid my money to come in here. I drove 14 hours. I got my family here. My son's watching this. And so we go and we do the fist bump, and it was just like, I don't know, I just went stupid. And, I just remember like in some of it, I was thinking, okay, cool. I'm going to go in and do this like kind of body lock, bear hug thing, whatever. That's going to be something that I go for. And I shot in one arm, and then he got like, it wasn't, I guess maybe it was a whizzer, but like, I don't know. He had downward pressure on it, and I got concerned. I was like, oh no, I'm getting set up for something. And so in that brief moment of hesitation, he ended up taking me down. And then I spent like, 4.5 minutes, almost 5 whole minutes under knee on belly. And it was a very, even at that time, for whatever reason, like, nowadays I know what to do if I'm under knee on belly, right? There's a couple different things. You can swim your hand under, right? Try to do that, or like push up on their knee and sort of post off, and then do a, shrimp out. And I did none of that, during this. And so he ended up, transitioning, right? And I guess he was able to spam points that way or something, because he didn't sub me. So that's the one thing I'll hang my hat on, is I didn't get sub. But he ended up beating me 20-0 on points. And again, it was a pathetic display. I stayed under knee on belly, practically the entire time. But I'll tell you what, after doing that, I felt the biggest wave of euphoria. Like there was something about it. Like I was like, my cardio was good at that point. And so I know it wasn't just the fact that I was worked up from the cardio aspect, but like my heart was like beating out of my chest, and I could hear my pulse in my ears. And like, it was just the adrenaline, right, that had gotten me. And so I remember, even though he had beat me, like I thanked him. I shook his hand afterwards, and it was like a genuine thank you for that experience. I don't know. Like it just felt so good having done that, even though I lost, right? And it was kind of humiliating in retrospect. But, I suited up, I showed up. I bought the ticket, took the ride, so to speak. And, I don't know. It was a miserable experience. Or it was a miserable performance for sure. But I'm definitely thankful that I actually, went through it. And, afterwards, I got to dry my tears. We ate some steak, and, we did the Disney World and that kind of stuff. So, it wasn't a wholly bad experience, but yeah, I guess, that would be my confession there.
At any point during this, were you thinking about the fact that your wife was watching? I'm genuinely curious.
My son. Yeah, it was my son mostly. And it was funny too, because in the video, he ends up freaking out because he was, at the time, let me see, I was a white belt. So he was maybe 2. Maybe he was 2 years old, and he was like cheering me on when we started. And then as soon as he saw me on the ground, though, he starts like crying. And so the woman next to my wife has to like hold the phone, and she's like holding it for her. She's like trying to console my son because I guess he thought, you know, his dad's really getting hurt here and that kind of stuff. So, but I wasn't aware of any of that at the time because this was at it was at like a larger high school, like a kind of auditorium thing. And so they were good ways away from me. So like I wasn't intimately aware that was happening, but afterwards it was hilarious. And I knew they were watching, yeah, but I don't know how much that played into it other than like, I think some of it I just wasn't prepared for because I just remember like we did the fist bump or whatever. And then for whatever, I don't know, I just wasn't as aggressive out of the gate as I probably should have been. And then, I don't know. It was just interesting. It was an interesting experience for sure.
I asked because I've had my wife attend one competition. I wasn't thinking about her being there and watching it, but I have the video from her, and the whole time you just hear her going, "Oh shit, fuck, oh shit, fuck." I now am vastly aware of the fact that like this person that loves me is watching. She doesn't come to any of my competitions. She doesn't want to. Well, nice, Henry's actually, my son's actually interested in it now, so he might convince her to come back. But I was just curious if you ever thought about that. But also, you're telling me we don't even have to look for this footage. You have the footage.
I do have a footage. Yeah, I may share a link. Yeah, whatever. The thing is, it is uneventful, I guess, right? It's uneventful in terms of like, again, you want to see a white belt under neon belly for 5 minutes, but it's one of those. I think I mentioned when we were originally talking about it. That like I had taken the footage, I put it on the internet, and I shared it with some buddies just to kind of get their feedback. But obviously, what feedback are you going to give other than, John, you really got to work on that. Don't get under neon belly is probably the correct answer.
Just don't be there.
Just don't be there. Yeah, that's always. I always love that because it's like you'll be talking with the instructor or whatever, and it's like, listen, under side control, I'm having these issues. And they're like, yeah, well, wait a second, don't get under side control. And it's like, oh, okay. Why hadn't I thought of that? It's a genius plan.
Yeah.
Anyways, no, it took me several years before I was like able to watch it again. And then now it's like too, as a blue belt, again, whatever. I'm marginally better. But at least I know there's some things I probably could have done. At least I probably could have fought out and gotten to under his side control, right? Like, or something like that, I'm sure. But I think at the time I was hyper concerned that he was going to armbar me for whatever reason. I remember like specifically, I was like, oh, he's going to armbar me. And so like, I was very cognizant of where my arms were, but in a white belt foolish manner that, I don't know, like there's no excuse for it other than, it was a lack of skill and
big deal, man. This is your first tournament.
You did it.
It's no problem. It was your first tournament.
Yeah. You did it. Most people don't. So
yeah. Well, and like, it's your first tournament, right? Like who no one expects you to be like the master of the thing you did one time, like your first time, you got the video, you watch it, you write it down, take some notes.
What is it we say, Scott? You don't have the right to have expectations.
That is what I say. Yeah. That is what I say. I say it as like, it's kind of like a tough love, but it's also like a level set with people. It's like, give yourself a break too. Like, it's okay. Like, you're brand new. Yeah. It's like, what sport did we ever play where like the very first game that we ever played, we were like, God, I'm fucking sick at this. Like, some people out there probably, it wasn't me. So, it's like a way to kind of be like, give yourself a break. No problem. Did you get injured? No. Okay, good.
You did better in your first competition than I did in my first one. So you can put that on the, you can add that to the mantle too. I got choked out in like 10 seconds.
Nice. So, I'm already feeling better about it.
There you go. Excellent.
And there's the common cope where you just say that the other guy's sandbagging.
Mm-hmm. He's actually a blue belt. Yeah. Dude's a beast.
Bro, they're always sandbagging.
Yeah.
It's always the other guy sandbagging. Well, it's too, we joke about that, but like, there have been times where it's like, man, it'd be nice if I could just do like a white belt competition, but then too, knowing me, I would encounter somebody who would, maybe they are a real white belt, but it's like, they're super athletic. And so I would just get smoked anyways. And that probably really hurt. I'd rather lose at a blue belt level than lose at white belt level at this point, right?
For sure. do the blue belt tournament. Do your belt tournament. You know,
If you win, it's because you're great.
you're gonna
and
be
if you
saltier.
lose-
You're gonna be saltier if you went to a white belt tournament. Like, fuck, I was supposed to be the sandbagger. I was supposed to smoke this motherfucker. Like, and maybe you do, and then if you do smoke him, you're like, God damn it, I'm a blue belt. Like, you know, like it's like, yeah,
no one feels good about this. There's no winning there.
compete at your belt level. No, you did it. Good job,
Yeah.
man.
Well, thank you for sharing that story, John. Thank you for coming on the show. How can people get in touch with you, especially if they're interested in managed memberships? You know,
Yeah. Absolutely. They can check out managememberships.com. That's manage with no D, managememberships.com. If you put in the D, it'll also work, but managememberships.com. And then also, they can feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm John, spelled Jon, at managememberships.com. Love to, talk shop with anybody, no hard sales there. I'm genuinely interested in, kind of the market and what they're doing and specific pain points and where those improvements can be had. But yeah, again, the website, managememberships.com and John at managememberships.com.
Oh yeah, man. All right. So you guys got it there. Go check him out. This has been Fires Drinking Coffee. Remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, 5 stars. That's the big one. Thank you guys. We love you. Bye.